Mission St. Louis fights poverty by focusing on long-term empowerment of the city's youth. And joining me is Jason Watson, Director of Beyond Jobs. Jason, is there a problem that needs to be addressed here?
Definitely a problem that needs to be addressed. A lot of the heartbeat for me comes from being involved. I grew up in North St. Louis in what's called the Walnut Park area, and education system all the way down to living within an 8-block radius and never seeing anything outside of it. So we're able to address some of the issues that come along with those experiences.
Well, let's talk about some of those issues.
Absolutely. So one of the main things that we've noticed as an organization, and I think research even proves this, is just when even kids are not able to read at grade level, by the time that they reach high school, there's a direct pipeline to jail as a result of that. So one of the things that we wanted to be able to address was literacy and math. So we're currently, our Beyond School program is integrated into 2 local charter schools. We take 75 students from each school. We provide individualized plans for each student that focuses specifically on literacy and math. And one of those heartbeats is to see those children be able to make sure that they're at standardized reading levels by the time that they reach high school. For every 1 month that a child is in our program, they're growing in 3-month increments in comparison to other kids within that school system.
Wow. You talk about the effects of that 8-block radius and education. What else happens to a person's psyche when they live their entire lives in a bubble, so to speak?
Great question. I think even research shows that psychologically, when we talk about growing up in not only an impoverished area, but a crime-stricken environment, PTSD, research proves that many people that grow up in chronic traumatic environments, it does something to how they respond, right? So we know between the ages of about 2 to 14, your brain is being wired to whether it should fight, flight, or freeze, right? And your environment and the traumatic experiences that you're going through helps to shape the way your brain teaches you to respond to those particular things.
Well, you've mentioned PTSD, and you're talking about trauma in that area and growing up, and a lot of people don't really think about that. What types of trauma, what types of things are happening, or are these children, people in this environment witnessing, living, that pile on, that give you a reason to fight? Absolutely.
I use myself, for example. Growing up in the Walnut Park area, right now people see me in a tie and some glasses, but I grew up doing many of the things that the guys that we serve. And going to funerals, you become numb to seeing people lose their lives as a result of violence. It does something to you, and it numbs you to the reality of the value of not only your own life, but lives around you as well. So also living within that radius and seeing people that don't make it out makes you you don't even think, is there something else to attain to? And it's such a great reality. So one of my guys that went through our program, you know, his best friend was killed in front of him at the age of 15. And I don't want to be too graphic, but he said that his friend's brains flew in his mouth. He's 15 years old. To jump back from that is a really difficult thing, and it does something to you mentally. So we're talking about things as big as that, as well as small as things as small as when I went to high school, they had metal detectors. You know, that does something to you every time you walk into your school building, you're being searched. You know what I mean? So just small things like that come along with the environments that we grow up in that affects the way that we interact with the world.
And I know one of the other things you said that's a major factor is poverty. And you and I were talking off screen, and we said we don't want to use the word poor because there are countries where poor is a whole nother meaning and a whole nother look. But by U.S. standards, growing up in poverty, how does that affect? Because what you're doing is huge in combating exactly that.
Absolutely. Well, 2 things. It's interesting. I remember growing up and not even thinking whether I was in poverty or whether I was poor or not, you know. And because everyone that was around me was in the same set of circumstances that I was in. It's not until, you know, my wife always speaks to this, that she was a part of what's called the DSEG program, and that was when they would bus certain kids in the city out to county schools so that they could have access to better education. By God's grace, my wife was able to be a part of that program. And just the difference of going into that school system and seeing how different things are. Another friend of mine was saying when he went to city schools, you know, it was normal for a person's father not to be present. Well, once he became a part of the DSEG program, he would be in that program. And now when conferences are happening and he's seeing everybody else's father present, it does something to you. It has a huge effect on you. So when we're talking about some of the things that we see experienced within these areas, we're talking about not just financial, but we're also talking about just what you could see beyond what's in front of you.
We have to take a break. But when we come back from this break, let's talk about what you're doing to combat this. I mean, we've been talking about not negative things, but the reality of what's there. Let's talk about what's being done to cause a better reality for people.
Absolutely.
Stay with us at STL Live. We'll have more with Mission St. Louis after this break.